One of the reasons that Zillow is doing this is because there was this massive delta between a submission and a consumer actually getting a response. So Zillow goes out and says, okay, we can track all this data. We have concierge. What happens if we control the actual lead follow-up process? Ultimately, it's a great outcome for the consumer. The consumer, similar to an Uber or Lyft, can now expect when they hit that magical button, they get a response quickly. My name is John Bowler, and this is the None Size Fits All podcast, where every week I'll be sharing my candid thoughts on what's happening in the real estate industry. Good afternoon. Welcome to the None Size Fits All podcast. My name is John Bowler, co-founder of Grid Consulting. Today, we're going to be talking about a big announcement in the industry, Zillow's recent change from lead generation to connections. So, lead gen to connections, this idea of connections. Connections is about providing people with timely response and ensuring that occurs. So let's talk about the old experience. The old experience when you were an advertiser on one of Zillow Group's sites, you would ultimately buy a zip code. You would show up in that zip code. Leads would then be assigned directly to you as the advertiser. Those leads would show up in your inbox in the Premier Agent app. And the entire experience outside of the Premier Agent Concierge program was owned by you directly as the agent. So if I was in Concierge would ultimately work the lead. I'd still get notified of the lead, and then they would do a live transfer and I'd get that. If I was not in Concierge, the lead would go directly to me, and then my systems, my software, my ISA would be the one that would be following up on the lead. So the big announcement a couple weeks ago was that Zillow is now going to move everyone into the Premier Agent Concierge program. Every lead will be worked and technically owned by Zillow Group. Once the connection is made, Zillow Group will then attempt to transfer the lead directly to one of their advertisers. Leads will be transferred to you. If you don't answer the phone, it'll go to the next person. Why is Zillow doing this? One of the reasons that Zillow is doing this is because there was this massive delta between a submission and a consumer actually getting a response. So Zillow goes out and says, okay, we can track all this data. We have concierge. What happens if we control the actual lead follow-up process? Ultimately, it's a great outcome for the consumer. The consumer, similar to an Uber or Lyft, can now expect when they hit that magical button, they get a response quickly. More importantly, by putting everyone in that program, now the entire ecosystem is controlled and ultimately managed by the company. The downfalls, now the consumer is waiting or is now waiting for somebody to connect. But me as the advertiser, when I don't answer, it's going to go to the next person. This works for me in a positive way as the advertiser because I'm now going to get further and closer to my net connection rates that I originally signed up for. So for example, if I'm buying an estimated 30 leads a month, I'm an individual agent or I'm a team leader and I don't use an ISA, the ability to control the response time is incredibly hard. So let's say I buy 30 leads and all of a sudden I end up talking to 8. That's a very real experience. And the reason why you talk to 8 is it's not your fault. You're busy. You have other things you're doing. It's expensive to staff a team to basically work the leads. So I talk to 8 people out of the 30 that I purchased. Under this new world, I will now actually have the ability to talk to the highest percentage possible because the concierge team will be calling, and I may end up talking to 10. So the net for me as an individual contributor or a team leader with certain systems is that I'm going to actually talk to a net extra 2 people a month. Let's look at this from the perspective of a team leader that has a group of 5 ISAs or is using the jump ball Shark Tank feature where leads are routed to multiple people at once. It's slightly different for you because you now have a situation where you may have been doing better or worse than the concierge program, and now you're going to have this kind of raw number that you're ultimately going to work with. This saves you time as the advertiser. This saves you time as the professional because you're not chasing down leads that frankly should never have made it to you. But now Zillow is owning the burden of that. Interesting dynamic. One of the people that built the concierge program, I wouldn't argue that we're going to necessarily do better than you when you're controlling it and you have more flexibility. But really what this does, it does provide the consumer with a better experience, a better outcome consistently on the Zillow Group platform. So that's a positive. But That being said, if you drive up the number of raw connections across the board in a particular zip code, you likely can infer that they're actually going to have more conversion. And if there's more conversion occurring, that's great for everybody, but that also has the ability to then drive up price in the market-based pricing world that you all live in. So the new changes are interesting. They're incredibly positive for the consumer. I think that's ultimately what everyone should be thinking about. But it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out as agents are competing for those connections, and what they do now that they're not chasing a bunch of these leads that are going to go nowhere. I guess lastly, the thing that I'm fascinated with is thinking about how this impacts the other places where you're buying and purchasing leads. So you have these different companies out there. They do a great job of vetting the leads. And really, when you think about what vetting the leads means, I'm getting rid of the crappy leads. The crappy leads, you paid for those. The denominator is now different and reduced. Your cost per connection is higher, but it's actually the equivalent of basically like 2/3 or so of the leads were bad, and the third are now good. So my connection rate's really the same when you start looking through the math. But how does that change? So Zillow made this big change. They're focused on connection. They're focused on customer satisfaction ratings. What does a Realtor.com do? What does a Facebook do? What does a Google PPC or these different companies do that have a better or worse lead quality? Is there going to be this shift where the industry, the people selling the product to you, is now responsible for the quality of the lead that they're assigning to you? Are they able to vet out the leads that should never make it to you that you pay for? At the end of the day, it's going to drive up the kind of the psyche of the connection, the dollar per connection. But at the end of the day, I think this is a positive outcome for consumers. How it impacts you as the advertiser is TBD. We will see. But interesting dynamics. I applaud Zillow for going the route of connections, because at the end of the day, the world that we live in, it should be about the consumer. And technology has proven time and time again with different industries that making sure that the consumer is getting a timely response is good. But I think it'll come with big changes for each and every single person that ultimately relies on the portals or the different lead sources to buy leads, because it changes the economics of your investment decision. So thanks for listening. Wish you a great week, and thanks for following us.